At my wedding anniversary, my husband introduced his real wife. At our 20th wedding anniversary party, my husband stood up with champagne and said, "Before we celebrate, there's someone I need you all to meet. This is Rebecca, my real wife." The room went silent. But what he didn't know was that I had already met Rebecca 3 months ago, and what I had planned would change everything. My name is Catherine Morgan and I'm 48 years old. The story I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a nightmare, but every word is true. It began on a cold February morning when I found a receipt in my husband's coat pocket. I wasn't snooping. I was simply taking his suit to the dry cleaners when a small piece of paper fell out. Hotel Grandview, Presidential Suite, 2 nights, $3,400. The date was from the previous week when Thomas had supposedly been in Boston for a conference. Hotel Grandview was not in Boston. It was 20 minutes from our home in Arlington. My hands trembled as I held that receipt. 20 years of marriage and suddenly everything felt like a lie. Thomas and I met in graduate school. I was studying architecture and he was completing his MBA. He was charming, ambitious, and made me feel like the most important person in the world. We married quickly, perhaps too quickly, but I was young and in love. The early years were beautiful. We struggled financially like most young couples, but we had each other. When I got pregnant with our daughter Emma, Thomas was overjoyed. He painted the nursery himself, stayed up with me during those exhausting first months, and seemed genuinely happy. But somewhere along the way things shifted. Thomas's career took off. He became a partner at a prestigious consulting firm, started traveling constantly, and gradually became a stranger living in my house. I raised Emma mostly alone, attended her school events by myself, and learned to stop expecting him at family dinners. I told myself it was normal. He was providing for us. He was building a future. But late at night when I lay awake listening to the silence, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to see it. That receipt forced me to see everything. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I decided to watch and wait. Thomas came home that evening with his usual briefcase and tired smile. "How was Boston?" I asked casually, setting dinner on the table. "Exhausting," he replied, loosening his tie. "Meetings from morning till night. I barely had time to eat." "Why?" A smooth, practiced lie delivered without hesitation. "That's too bad," I said quietly. "Did you at least stay somewhere nice?" For just a second I saw something flicker in his eyes. Panic maybe. "The conference hotel. Nothing special." "How was your day?" He changed the subject so smoothly that I almost questioned whether I had really found that receipt. Almost. Over the next few weeks I became a detective in my own marriage. I checked phone records, credit card statements, anything I could access. What I discovered made my stomach turn. Regular charges to the same hotel, restaurants in places he claimed never to have visited, and dozens of calls to a number I didn't recognize. One evening, while Thomas was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a text. I picked it up without thinking. The message preview showed, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I love you, Mrs. Morgan." Mrs. Morgan. She was calling herself Mrs. Morgan. My vision blurred. I put the phone down carefully, exactly where it had been, and walked to our bedroom like a zombie. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we had shared for 20 years, and felt my entire world collapse. Who was she? How long had this been going on? And why was she calling herself by my name? The next day I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Chin, and he came highly recommended by a divorce attorney my friend Lillian had used years earlier. Marcus was professional, discreet, and surprisingly kind for someone who dealt with people's worst moments. "Mrs. Morgan," he said during our first meeting in his small downtown office, "I need you to prepare yourself. What I find might be difficult to hear." "I'm already prepared," I told him. But I wasn't. Nothing could have prepared me for what he discovered. It took Marcus exactly 9 days to compile his report. When he called me to come to his office, his voice was different. "Thumber. Mrs. Morgan, I think you should sit down for this." The file he handed me was thick. Inside were photographs, bank statements, property records, and documents I couldn't immediately understand. But the first photograph said everything. Thomas stood outside a townhouse in Silver Spring, his arm around a woman who looked to be in her mid-30s. She was pretty, blonde, and smiling up at him with genuine affection. But what made my heart stop was what came next. In the second photograph they were at what appeared to be a party. A banner behind them read, Happy anniversary, Thomas and Rebecca. There were guests, a cake, champagne. My husband was celebrating an anniversary with another woman. How long? I whispered. Marcus's expression was grim. According to my investigation, 8 years. They met at a conference in Chicago. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative. They started an affair that gradually became something more. Something more. Mrs. Morgan, Marcus said carefully. They had a commitment ceremony 6 years ago. Not a legal marriage, obviously, since he's already married to you. But they exchanged rings, made vows, and have been living as husband and wife in that townhouse for the past 5 years. The room spun. 8 years. Half of Emma's life. While I had been raising our daughter, managing our household, believing in our marriage, Thomas had been building an entirely separate life with another woman. There's more, Marcus continued quietly. According to the financial records, your husband has been funneling significant amounts of money into this second household. Approximately $180,000 over the past 5 years. He purchased that townhouse in Rebecca's name, pays all her bills, and has even opened joint accounts with her. I couldn't breathe. Joint accounts. Yes. And there's something else you need to see. He pulled out another document. It was a will dated 2 years ago. In it, Thomas had left everything to Rebecca Morgan, listing her as his wife and primary beneficiary. I wasn't mentioned at all. But we're legally married, I said, my voice barely audible. Yes, which means this will wouldn't hold up in court. But it shows his intent. Mrs. Morgan, I believe your husband has been planning to eventually divorce you and legitimize his relationship with Rebecca. The timing just hasn't been right yet. I sat there in that office, staring at photographs of my husband with another woman, feeling like my entire life had been a performance I didn't know I was giving. 20 years of marriage reduced to a lie. What do I do? Asked finally. Marcus leaned forward. That depends on what you want. We have more than enough evidence for a divorce. Your attorney could use this to ensure a favorable settlement. Or, he paused. You could confront him directly. But I'd recommend speaking with a lawyer first. I left his office with the file tucked in my bag, feeling numb. I drove around for hours, unable to face going home. Eventually, I found myself at Lillian's house. She was the only person I trusted with this. When she opened the door and saw my face, she immediately pulled me inside. Catherine, what happened? I told her everything. Every horrible detail. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was crying too. That bastard, she said finally. That absolute bastard. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to scream, to throw him out, to tell everyone what he's done. But another part of me just feels empty. Lillian took my hands. Listen to me. You need to be smart about this. Don't confront him yet. Get a lawyer, protect yourself financially, and make a plan. Then you decide how to handle it. He was right. I spent the next 3 weeks in a fog, playing the role of the dutiful wife while secretly meeting with attorneys and forensic accountants. My lawyer, Patricia Winters, was a tough, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had seen everything. Catherine, she told me during our second meeting, the fact that he's been diverting marital assets to fund this other relationship works heavily in your favor. We can recover that money plus additional damages. But we need to move carefully. Don't let him know you're aware until we're ready. There's something else, I said. Our 20th anniversary is in 6 weeks. He's been planning a big party. He seems almost excited about it, which is strange given everything. Patricia's eyes narrowed. That is strange. Let me look into something. What she discovered was chilling. Through her own investigators, Patricia learned that Thomas had been telling Rebecca that he was finally going to leave me. The anniversary party was supposed to be his grand exit. He planned to announce his intentions publicly, in front of all our friends and family, as some twisted way of making it seem mutual and amicable. He's going to humiliate you, Patricia said bluntly. He wants to control the narrative, to make it look like a conscious uncoupling, like it's all very mature and civilized. That way he avoids looking like the villain. Rage, pure and cold, swept through me. After everything, he was going to make me the public face of his betrayal. Can we stop him? We can do better than that, Patricia said with a thin smile. We can turn it around on him. But you have to be willing to play along until the right moment. Can you do that? I thought about Emma, about the life I'd built, about 20 years of memories, both real and fake. Yes, I said. I can do that. The plan was risky but brilliant. I would let the party proceed as Thomas planned. I would even help plan it, play the loving wife, and give him no reason to suspect I knew anything. Then at the party itself we would reveal everything. Not with anger or tears, but with cold, documented facts. Patricia would be there, as would Marcus with his evidence. We would expose Thomas's double life in front of everyone who mattered. The key, Patricia explained, is that we'll already have filed for divorce and frozen the joint accounts. By the time the party happens, you'll be legally protected. The public revelation is just to ensure the truth comes out on your terms, not his. It was brutal. It was calculated. And it was exactly what he deserved. The 6 weeks leading up to the anniversary were the strangest of my life. I smiled, I planned, I played my part perfectly. Thomas seemed pleased, even affectionate. He thought he was pulling off the perfect exit strategy. What he didn't know was that I was 3 steps ahead. I even did something audacious. I tracked down Rebecca. I found out where she worked, and wearing sunglasses and a hat, I watched her one afternoon. She was pretty in an ordinary way, laughing with coworkers outside a pharmacy. She looked happy. She had no idea she was the other woman in someone else's marriage. On an impulse, I followed her to a coffee shop. I sat 2 tables away and listened to her phone conversation. "No, Tom won't be home until late," she was saying. "He has to do the anniversary thing with Catherine. But after Saturday it's all over. He's finally going to tell her about us." My coffee turned to acid in my stomach. She knew about me. She knew he was married. She knew about the anniversary party. And she was waiting like a vulture for my marriage to officially end. I wanted to walk over to tell her exactly what kind of man she was waiting for. But I didn't. Because I had a better plan. 3 days before the party I did something even more audacious. I sent Rebecca an invitation. Not from me, but anonymously, with a note. "You should see what your future husband is really like. Come to his 20th anniversary party, Saturday at 7 p.m. the Riverside Estate. You might learn something interesting." Patricia thought I was crazy. "Catherine, if she shows up, it could derail everything." "Good," I said. "Let him see both of his wives in the same room. Let him squirm." The night of the party arrived. The Riverside Estate was beautiful, decorated with white flowers and soft lighting. 100 guests, our closest friends, family members, and colleagues, filled the garden. Emma, now 17, was there in a beautiful blue dress, still innocent to what was about to happen. I had decided not to tell her beforehand. She would find out with everyone else. Thomas looked handsome in his tailored suit, playing the role of devoted husband. He kissed my cheek when I arrived, whispered that I looked beautiful. I smiled and thanked him. Inside I was ice. Patricia was there, dressed as a guest, with Marcus seated at a nearby table. They both had folders ready. The plan was simple. When Thomas made his announcement, we would make ours. But then at 7:30 p.m. something unexpected happened. Rebecca arrived. She stood at the entrance, looking uncertain, clutching the invitation I'd sent. She was wearing a nice dress, her hair done up, and she looked nervous. Thomas didn't see her yet. He was talking to his brother near the bar. I walked straight up to her. "Rebecca." She looked startled. "How do you know my name?" "I'm Catherine. Thomas's wife. His actual legal wife. Come with me." Her face went white. I don't understand. He said you were separated." "He said the marriage was over years ago." "Did he?" I said coldly. "Well, he lied. Come on. You're going to want to see this." I led her to a table at the side where Patricia and Marcus were seated. "Sit," I told her. "Watch." At 8 p.m., Thomas clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. The garden fell silent. Emma was standing next to me, sensing something was wrong. "Mom, what's going on?" "Just wait, sweetheart," I whispered. Thomas stood in the center of the garden, champagne glass raised. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this milestone with us," he began. His voice was smooth, confident. 20 years is a long time, and Catherine and I have been through so much together." He glanced at me, expecting me to smile. I just watched him coldly. He faltered for just a second, then continued. "But sometimes marriages run their course. Sometimes people grow apart. And sometimes, we have to be honest about when it's time to move forward." He paused for effect. Before we celebrate, there's someone I need you all to meet. Someone who has been an important part of my life for many years." The crowd stirred, confused. I saw Emma's hand grip mine tightly. "This is Rebecca," Thomas said, gesturing to where Rebecca sat, frozen in horror. "My real wife." The silence was deafening. Then came the gasps, the whispers, the shocked faces. But Thomas wasn't done. "Catherine and I have been essentially separated for years. We stayed together for convenience, for appearances. But the truth is, Rebecca and I have built a real life together. A genuine partnership. And it's time everyone knew the truth." He looked so pleased with himself. So confident that he was controlling the narrative. That's when I stood up. "You're absolutely right, Thomas," I said loudly. Every head turned to me. It is time everyone knew the truth. I walked to the center of the garden and Patricia followed with her folder. Thomas's expression shifted from confidence to confusion. "Catherine, what are you?" "The truth," I continued, my voice carrying across the silent garden, "is that while I thought we were married, you were living an entirely separate life. 8 years, Thomas. You've been having an affair with Rebecca for 8 years." Gasps erupted. Rebecca looked like she might faint. Thomas's face went pale. "But it wasn't just an affair, was it?" I continued. "You bought her a townhouse. You funneled $180,000 of our marital assets into your secret life. You had a fake wedding ceremony with her 6 years ago. You wrote a will leaving everything to her as if I didn't exist." I nodded to Patricia, who began distributing copies of bank statements and photographs to the shocked guests. "Here's the evidence. Here's the hotel receipts, the property records, the joint accounts. Here's proof that my husband has been committing financial fraud for years." Thomas tried to speak. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "You wanted to divorce me, but you didn't want to look like the bad guy. So you planned this grand announcement thinking you could spin it as mutual as mature. You wanted everyone to think we'd grown apart naturally. What you didn't plan for was me finding out. What you didn't plan for was me being 3 steps ahead." I turned to Rebecca, who was crying now. "And you, Rebecca? He told you we were separated? That the marriage was over?" "He lied. We live together. We share a bed. Emma is our daughter. You were never his real wife. You were his expensive secret." Rebecca stood up, sobbing. "Tom, you said you promised." She couldn't finish. She ran from the garden and I let her go. Thomas stood there, exposed, with 100 pairs of eyes on him. His brother looked disgusted. His colleagues were whispering. Even his mother was staring at him with disappointment. "Thomas Morgan," Patricia said formally, stepping forward. "You were served divorce papers 3 days ago. Your wife is suing for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. All joint accounts have been frozen pending the outcome of the case. If you have questions, you can contact my office." She handed him her card. Thomas took it numbly, looking around at the ruins of his reputation. Emma was crying beside me. I pulled her close. "I'm sorry you had to see this, sweetheart. But you needed to know the truth about your father." "How could he?" she whispered. "How could he do this to us?" "I don't know, baby. But we're going to be okay. I promise." The party dissolved into chaos. People left quickly, some offering me sympathetic hugs, others avoiding eye contact with Thomas. Within an hour, the garden was nearly empty. Thomas approached me one last time. "Catherine, please. We can talk about this. We can work something out." "There's nothing to work out," I said calmly. "You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. I've already moved your things to the townhouse. You should probably go check on Rebecca." She looked pretty upset. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said weakly. "But you did. For 8 years, you hurt me every single day with your lies. And you were going to humiliate me publicly to make yourself feel better about it. So no, Thomas, I don't care what you wanted. You're going to lose half of everything in the divorce. You're going to pay back every penny you stole from our marriage to fund your affair. And everyone you know now knows exactly what kind of man you are." I turned and walked away, Emma beside me, and I didn't look back. The divorce took 8 months. Patricia was ruthless. Thomas tried to fight, but the evidence was overwhelming. The court ordered him to repay the $180,000 he'd diverted, plus half of all remaining marital assets. The house went to me. The retirement accounts were split, but given his financial misconduct, I received 60% instead of 50%. His reputation never recovered. His firm asked him to resign quietly after the scandal went public. Turns out, having a partner who commits financial fraud in his personal life makes clients nervous about trusting him professionally. He ended up taking a lower-paying position at a smaller firm in Baltimore. Rebecca, from what I heard, left him within a month of the party. He felt just as betrayed as I did. She had truly believed his lies about being separated. When she realized he'd been lying to both of us, playing both of us, she was done. Last I heard, she moved back to her hometown in Ohio and wanted nothing to do with him. Thomas's mother called me 6 months after the divorce was finalized. "Catherine," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I need you to know how sorry I am. I raised him better than this. I don't know what happened to my son." "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." "Emma called me last week," she continued. "She wants to come visit during summer break. I hope that's all right. I know I'm technically not her grandmother anymore, legally speaking, but—" "You'll always be her grandmother," I interrupted gently. "The divorce is between me and Thomas. It doesn't change Emma's relationships with his family. If she wants to see you, I support that." She cried. "Thank you. And Catherine, you're a stronger woman than I could ever be. What you did at that party, it took courage." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen in the house that was now solely mine, and felt at peace for the first time in years. Yes, my marriage had been a lie. Yes, I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible. But I had survived. More than that, I had fought back. Emma is in college now, studying psychology. She says what happened with her father taught her about the importance of honesty and integrity. She's closer to me than ever, and though she maintains a relationship with Thomas, it's distant and strained. He's her father, but she knows what he's capable of. As for me, I'm 50 now and genuinely happy. I started my own architecture firm, something I'd always dreamed of but never pursued while I was busy being Thomas's wife. I have good friends, a close relationship with my daughter, and the freedom to live my life on my own terms. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the way I handled it. They think I should have just quietly divorced him, that making a public scene was beneath me. But I don't regret it for a second. Thomas wanted to control the narrative of our divorce, to make himself look good while making me look like a willing participant in our marriage's natural end. By exposing him publicly, I took that control away. I made sure everyone knew the truth. I made sure there were consequences. Because here's what I learned: you can't give power to people who abuse it. You can't let liars control the story. And you certainly can't let someone humiliate you without fighting back. That anniversary party was supposed to be my humiliation. Instead, it became his. And while I don't take joy in his downfall, I do take satisfaction in knowing that I stood up for myself. That I didn't accept being treated as expendable. That I fought back with every resource I had. One evening about a year after the divorce, I ran into Rebecca at a grocery store. We saw each other across the produce section and froze. Then slowly she walked over. "Catherine," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology." "You don't," I replied. "You were lied to just like I was. I should have asked more questions. I should have, I don't know. I should have seen the signs." "We see what we want to see," I said. He was good at lying. To both of us. We talked for a few minutes. She told me she was in therapy working through the betrayal and her part in it. She asked about Emma, expressed genuine remorse for the pain she'd unknowingly caused. I told her I forgave her and I meant it. She wasn't the villain in my story. Thomas was. As I drove home that day, I realized something important. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means acknowledging the pain, learning from it, and choosing to move forward anyway. My marriage to Thomas taught me many things, but the most important lesson came from its ending. It taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. That I can face betrayal and come out the other side. That I don't need someone else to validate my worth or define my happiness. I rebuilt my life on my terms. And while the journey was painful, the destination has been worth every difficult step. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed, who's been lied to, who's been made to feel small, you are not powerless. Document everything. Get good legal advice. Protect yourself financially. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to fight back. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with truth. The truth is the most powerful weapon you have. That anniversary party was supposed to be the end of my story. Instead, it was the beginning. The beginning of a life built on honesty, strength, and self-respect. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.